Truth is the foundation of personal power because it anchors you in reality. Without truth, you're just floating, guessing, assuming, pretending. And the problem with pretending is that it creates a false sense of progress. You can smile on the outside, say all the right things, wear the right clothes, and still be far from growth if you haven't faced the truth about where you really are. Jim Rohn taught that life responds not to your wishes, but to your honesty. When you are truthful about your circumstances, your attitude, your discipline, your effort, now you're in a position to change them. Truth gives you direction. It's the starting line for every real transformation. You can't build strength on denial. You can't fix what you won't acknowledge. You can't improve what you won't measure. That's why personal power begins when you say, "Here's where I really am," not where you hope to be. Not where you used to be, where you are right now. Truth invites clarity, and clarity gives birth to responsibility. It's difficult to take ownership of your life if you're living in a cloud of illusions. The more truthful you become with yourself, the more power you gain over your future. You stop blaming others. You stop playing the victim. You stop waiting, and you start doing. You start changing. You start building. That's when the shift happens. From being managed by life to becoming a manager of it, from drifting to steering, from reacting to responding. The truth is not always comfortable, but it's always empowering. That's the paradox. The moment you stop sugarcoating your story, you begin writing a better one. Think of personal power not as force, but as influence, especially the influence you have over your own life. The ability to lead yourself requires truth. Because if you lie to yourself about your weaknesses, your habits, your excuses, or your potential, then you'll continue to live under those lies. You can't outperform a false identity. You can't outgrow an unacknowledged limitation. You rise by facing the facts. Power comes when you see the truth and decide to respond to it with character and courage. Jim often said, "Disgust is a powerful emotion." But you can't even get to disgust until you're willing to face the facts. And it's not about beating yourself up. It's about waking up. Truth is like turning on the lights. You can't fix what's in the dark, but when you turn on the lights, you see what needs attention, and now you can clean it, arrange it, improve it. That's where self-leadership begins. That's where momentum starts. Most people think they're stuck because of their past, their circumstances, or other people. But often, they're stuck because they're not being honest about their own patterns. They keep repeating the same cycles because they never told themselves the truth about what's causing the cycle. The truth exposes the roots. It gives you the opportunity to uproot the things that don't belong. That's personal power, choosing growth when most people settle for comfort. One of the most powerful decisions you can make is to say, "I was wrong," or "I didn't handle that well," or "I haven't been disciplined," or "I've been avoiding responsibility." That's not weakness. That's strength in its purest form. The person who can admit the truth about themselves is the person who can lead themselves out of mediocrity. The person who can't be honest with themselves is forever trapped in a loop of blame and frustration. Jim Rohn made it clear, success is something you attract by the person you become, and becoming someone different starts with being truthful about who you are right now. Some people say they want freedom, but they hide from truth. They say they want success, but they avoid feedback. They say they want change, but they won't look in the mirror, and you can't fix a lie with a plan. You can't outrun dishonesty with hustle. That's why truth is the foundation. It's the bedrock you build on. Without it, everything collapses when pressure comes. When the winds of adversity blow, only what's built on truth remains. It's not the appearance of strength that matters, it's the substance, and substance comes from honesty, from character, from alignment between your words and your actions, between your potential and your performance. Truth is also the great filter. It shows you what's real and what's not, in relationships, in work, in mind, That truth tells you where the cracks are. And if you're humble enough to see those cracks, you can fill them. You can reinforce the foundation. That's when you become unshakable, because you've faced what others run from. You've dealt with the hard stuff. And that kind of honesty breeds confidence, not arrogance, not ego, but confidence that's earned, power that's developed, influence that's authentic. You don't need to fake it when you've faced it. You don't need to impress anyone when you're aligned with your own values. Personal power isn't loud, it's quiet. It's that quiet resolve that comes from knowing you've done the work, that you've looked yourself in the mirror and handled the truth with integrity, that you've cleaned the inside of the cup, not just polished the outside. And now when you speak, people listen, not because you're the loudest, but because you're the most aligned. That's what people respond to. Authenticity, sincerity, honesty, not perfection, truth, because truth resonates. It cuts through the noise, and when you live in truth, you speak with clarity, you move with purpose, you lead with conviction. The journey to personal power doesn't begin with a book, or a seminar, or a strategy. It begins with a decision to stop running from the truth, to stop hiding behind excuses, or blaming the economy, or your upbringing, or your boss, or your past. It begins when you sit down and say, all right, what's real here? What's the truth about my results, my habits, my effort, my mindset? That's the doorway, and not everyone walks through it. But the ones who do find something priceless, they find freedom because truth liberates. It frees you from the chains of pretense, from the weight of denial, from the burden of fake progress. When you start telling yourself the truth, you stop needing external motivation. You stop waiting for the perfect time. You stop leaning on others to push you, because the truth becomes your fuel. It lights a fire inside of you, and that fire burns through procrastination. It burns through fear. It burns through laziness. That's what makes a person powerful. Not just the truth itself, but what the truth awakens in them. It's like turning on the engine of personal growth. The more honest you become, the faster you grow. And the more you grow, the more freedom you experience. Not because life gets easier, but because you get stronger. Jim Rohn understood this deeply. That's why he spent so much time talking about personal responsibility, because the truth is, you can't be powerful without being accountable. You can't lead yourself if you lie to yourself. Truth is what sharpens your decisions. It clarifies your goals. It magnifies your integrity. It builds your reputation, and your reputation is the shadow of your character. It follows you everywhere. If you want to change your life, don't start with goals. Start with truth. Don't start with a to-do list. Start with a mirror. Don't start with motivation. Start with honesty, because once you have truth, you can have clarity. Once you have clarity, you can have strategy. Once you have strategy, you can have results. And once you have results, you can build momentum. That's how you become powerful, not in one leap, but in one truth at a time. And even when the truth hurts, it still heals. It's the medicine that grows you, the mirror that humbles you, the compass that guides you, and the standard that protects you. When you live by truth, you walk taller, not because life is perfect, but because your character is clean. And when your character is clean, your conscience is quiet. That's personal power. That's the edge. And it all begins with the courage to look yourself in the eye and say, tell me the truth. Freedom comes through discipline and responsibility, because without them, freedom is just a fantasy. It's easy to talk about wanting freedom, freedom of time, freedom of choice, financial freedom, emotional freedom, but real freedom doesn't show up just because you wish for it. It shows up when you earn it. It's the result of structure, not the absence of it. Most people think freedom means doing whatever you want, whenever you want. But that's not freedom, that's chaos, and chaos always leads to bondage. bondage to poor habits, to debt, to regret, to broken health, to fractured relationships. Jim Rohn taught that discipline is the foundation that holds freedom in place. If you want to have the liberty to live life on your own terms, you have to first accept the burden of self-control. Discipline is the decision to do what's right even when it's not easy. It's the muscle that resists temptation, the guardrail that protects momentum, and the compass that keeps your life aligned. It's showing up early when others sleep in. It's doing the extra work when no one is watching. It's saying no to what feels good now so you can enjoy what feels great later. Freedom comes through that kind of discipline because it builds the habits that create results, and those results give you options. Discipline multiplies your choices, and choice is the essence of freedom. Without discipline, you end up with fewer and fewer choices. You start settling, compromising, drifting, until one day you look around and wonder how you got stuck. But discipline is the ladder that helps you climb out. It's not flashy, but it's powerful. It's not emotional, but it's effective. And discipline alone is not enough without responsibility. Responsibility is the partner of discipline. If discipline is the engine, responsibility is the driver. It's not enough to do the right thing once. You have to take ownership of your life. That means refusing to blame, refusing to complain, refusing to wait on others to fix your situation. Jim said it best, you must take personal responsibility. You cannot change the seasons, you cannot change the wind, but you can change yourself. That's where real freedom begins, when you stop pointing fingers and start pointing inward. When you stop waiting for things to get better and start becoming better. Responsibility means you no longer depend on circumstances to determine your future. You make the adjustments, you learn the skills, you grow the character. People often confuse liberty with lack of obligation, but the truth is, the people who are the freest are often the ones who carry the most responsibility. The person who has financial freedom didn't get it by chance. They earned it by taking responsibility for their money. The person who has emotional peace didn't stumble upon it. They cultivated it by taking responsibility for their reactions. The person who leads others well didn't inherit leadership. They developed it by taking responsibility for their example. Freedom flows through the channels of responsibility. If you ignore that truth, you'll chase freedom your whole life and never find it. You'll chase pleasure, not progress. And there's a big difference between relief and freedom. Relief is temporary. It's what you feel when you escape. Freedom is lasting. It's what you experience when you master. Discipline and responsibility are not punishments. They're permissions. They give you permission to grow, to succeed, to rise, to move forward without needing someone to hold your hand. They empower you to trust yourself because you've proven to yourself that you're capable, that you're consistent, that you're dependable. And when you build that kind of trust in yourself, you stop living small. You stop shrinking your dreams to match your habits. You start expanding your habits to match your dreams. That's freedom, the freedom to pursue a vision without being weighed down by laziness, fear, or excuse. Freedom also demands long-term thinking, and long-term thinking requires responsibility. Anyone can live for today, spend it all, eat it all, waste it all. That's easy. But the person who lives with tomorrow in mind is the person who will experience freedom tomorrow. Jim Rohn said, we must all suffer one of two pains, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. The pain of discipline is temporary. The pain of regret is permanent. Choose discipline and you choose growth. Choose regret and you choose limitation. And the beauty of discipline is that the more you practice it, the easier it becomes. It becomes a rhythm, a system, a lifestyle, and that lifestyle creates structure, and within that structure, freedom begins to flourish. Discipline also protects freedom. Just like guardrails on a mountain road don't restrict your driving, they protect your journey. Discipline doesn't restrict your life, It protects your goals. It protects your energy. It protects your future. People without discipline often lose what they value most because they weren't willing to protect it. They lose health because they didn't control their appetite. They lose respect because they didn't control their words. They lose opportunities because they didn't control their time. So what looks like freedom on the outside, doing whatever you want, is often the fast lane to loss. But when you discipline yourself, you don't have to be disciplined by life. And that's freedom. Responsibility also sharpens your identity. It forces you to live with intention. When you take responsibility, you stop reacting and start designing. You become the architect of your own life. You don't just drift, you decide. You don't just respond, you create. That's what separates those who thrive from those who survive. The survivors are always waiting, waiting for the government, waiting for the boss, waiting for a sign, but the thrivers are building. They're developing skills, refining habits, managing time, growing relationships. That's the fruit of responsibility. You own your mistakes. You learn your lessons. You adjust your course, and as you do, your influence expands and your freedom increases. Freedom is not the absence of rules, it's the mastery of them. It's not found in rebellion, but in refinement. The person who disciplines their body has the freedom to enjoy health. The person who disciplines their mind has the freedom to think clearly. The person who disciplines their words has the freedom to speak with influence. The person who takes responsibility for their life has the freedom to shape it. And all of it begins with a decision to stop waiting for freedom and start working for it. Because freedom is not given, it's earned. It's not found, it's built. It's not gifted, it's grown. And when you realize that, you stop chasing freedom as an escape and start creating freedom as a reward.